Welcome to the October version of EDDMapS office hours. Just waiting for a few more people to join in. Good to see you all on this fine fall day. I know we've been enjoying some cooler weather down here in South Georgia. It's nice to finally get down occasionally into the 50s and be able to enjoy the outdoors a little more.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of the gnats haven't gotten the memo yet, so they're still a bit of a problem. But the other annoying insects have gone away at least.
Just one more minute while you all come in for the EDDMapS office hours. We're pretty excited today about the new advanced query tool. Some of you are familiar with the old one we had that served us for a number of years, did an okay job, but it was time for a refresh. So we're pretty excited about some of the functionality we were able to bring into this new one. So I guess we are at 11 o'clock. We like to respect your time. So with that, Rebecca today is going to go over the new advanced query tool and talk about some of the new features we released into it. So take it away, Rebecca.
Any questions you have, put them in the Q&A box, and that way we can keep track of those specific things. If you'd like to let us know where you're from, that would also be great. I see some names I recognize. Some of you have emailed even this week. So it's always good to see some familiar faces, people we've talked to before. And I know at least a number of you have used our previous advanced query tool. And so we recently launched a refresh of it, as Joe mentioned earlier. For those of you that are not familiar, it is called the Advanced Query Tool. Chuck and I were talking about it yesterday, and he had completely forgotten why we called it the Advanced Query Tool until I reminded him that we have other simpler query tools on our website. The Distribution Maps page is a version of a simple query tool. It's looking at a very simple question: what species are where? We also have some other types of querying tools available on the tools page. That's also the link to the advanced query tool. So if we go to the tools page and open that up, you can see here there's species status report by state, species status report by other geographic location. Those are examples of our more simple query tools. It's looking at a very simple concept of, what's showing up where. If you have a more refined question, you can ask that question on the advanced query tools. So if we click on that, you'll see this is a different format than the other query tool was in. In the previous query tool, it had a page of the filters, and then you asked your question by filling out the parameters, and then you went to the results page. What our programmers did was to take it just down to one page, so that now this is a live query. You'll see that there's already results on this page here, because to have this be a live tool, there needs to be a default question. In this case, you can see on the left-hand side here, there's at the top, it says simple and advanced. This defaults to the simple question. So these are the most common questions people have, the most common parameters people have. The advanced option, if we click on that, there'll be more filters available, but we're going to stick with the simple for right now. The green check marks indicate that some parameters are entered into that filter. So in this case, we're looking at, there's a parameter in the record type, in the observation date, in the infestation status, and in the geographic location. There are parameters entered in those. Because there are parameters entered in those, we have a result showing up on the map. The default parameters, the default filters applied here are, it's looking at data for the last month for positive and treated records in the US and Canada for the current status of records. That this box right here tells you what your current parameters are, in addition to those, again, those green check boxes, check marks, indicating there's information in that field. The results summary also tells you kind of what's going on with that data, very brief information there. So going back to this panel on the left, at the very top, there's a notification saying filter drop-down options are limited to those with data. What that means is, as you're building your query, you're affecting the results on the main frame of the page. As you add parameters, as you remove parameters, it's a live response. Now, we, again, didn't have that with the previous query tool. The previous query tool, you built your query and then clicked submit, and you would get the data that was fitting those parameters. This is a live query. You're seeing results as you add or remove parameters. So that also means that the options available to you are only those which will have a non-zero result. So if I try to add in, let's say eradicated, I want only eradicated data, I've got 798 records. I didn't expect that. But if I go to state and province, I only have 3 options. There are only 3 states in this case, across the US and Canada, which I know provinces, territories in Canada, that have eradicated records in them for the last month. That's what this blue box at the get it out of there. That's what this blue box at the top is saying. Only non-zero options, only parameters with records will be the result. So we've had a few questions since we launched this about why am I not seeing this? Why am I not seeing everything I need? Is because, again, the query you're trying to build would result in 0 data, and the parameters are constantly checking for that. So again, we're in the simple options here. Record type, there are 4 options. Previously, there were 3. It defaults to current status, and as you open up each of these options, you'll see there's a little piece of information associated with each of these filter options. That's the equivalent of like a tooltip. This lets you know the information about that filter parameter. So in this case, again, looking at record type, we have current status, original records, revisits, and all. Current status, those of you that are familiar with EDDMapS will know this, but with EDDMapS, you can submit records, and then if you go back to that same spot 6 months, a year later, you can submit what's called a revisit record. That lets you document the current status of that population, so that through time you can get an idea of, is this population growing, shrinking? And that allows you to, answer your questions of, are my treatments working? Is this spreading on its own? Is it a stable population? Things like that. When you submit revisit records, the most recent observation of that population becomes the current record. If there's only 1 record, that's the current record. If there's 50 records, the most recent observation is considered the current record in that series. So current status means you're returning those records that are the most recent for that population, for that record series. Original records, it's the first record in the series. Again, if there's only 1 record, it's the record. If there's 50 records in the series, it's the most earliest record in that series. Those are the original records. Revisits, so that's returning only revisit records. So you would not return the original record in a series. You would only return revisits. And then all returns all records in the series. You get the original records, you get the revisits, everything. So you can choose if you only want to know what the current status is, if you only care about original records. So basically you don't need revisits, you just want to know where something was found, things like that. So you can play around with those and figure out what best fits your needs. Reporter, so if you are looking for records by a certain person or a certain, if a group of people are using, sharing an account, which we don't really recommend, but some people do that, you know, you can enter those names in there and get records for maybe the volunteer group you're working with, things like that. The observation date, again, the default query uses the last month of data, but you can change this to include a huge range, or you can even get rid of the observation date range entirely if you're concerned with all of the data for a county. You can remove the date range. But again, like I was mentioning, we have to have a default query for there to for data to show up. So the last month of data was chosen. Species. So if you're only concerned with certain species or certain, families of data, things like that. If you're, say, a knotweed project, and you're looking at giant, hybrid, and Bohemian knotweed, as well as knotweed that's known only to like the genus level, you can look at, okay, I want to find for Rhaenutria spa, and you'll get those 4 subjects for the 3 species and the spa data as well. So you can create the list. If you're looking for data at a certain taxonomic level, like if you only want that Rhaenutria spa for some reason, or something similar, you can click this box to exclude those data below it. So if you're only interested in records at the ligustrum spa level, and you don't want, for some reason, the Chinese privet and the European privet and things like that, that's where you use that box to exclude those subtaxa. So just to answer this really quickly, absence data to EDDMapS, that'll be available on, I believe, the training page. So I'll get to that at the end of this, to talk about how data can get in here. So again, back to these filtering options. Division, the options are, again, limited to the available options based on the current query build. So right now, the only options are plants, because we're looking at eradicated data in the last month. But the entire options include here plant, insect, disease, and or wildlife. So if I add in positive and treated and negative, I want all the data for the last month. I will get, sorry, wrong one. I'll get all the options: diseases, insects, plants, and wildlife, and I can pare down from there. If I want to look at category, those are options within each of those divisions. So you see aquatic plants. If I only care about aquatic plants, I can click that. Birds is a subsection of wildlife, things like that. So you can kind of refine your query if you only care about, say, like woody plants, grass plants, amphibians, things like that. Infestation status. So 4 options here: positive, treated, eradicated, and negative. Positive is I saw it. That's all the information that was input when the person provided the data. Treated, I saw it and I performed some sort of management activity. So I captured the cane toad. I I mowed it. I applied an insecticide, things like that. So that allows that information to be associated with that record. Eradicated, it's not there. I looked for it. It's not there. Theoretically, some event such as management or something like that caused it to no longer be there. But regardless, that it was there, it's no longer there is the and it's not expected to be there like in a month. That's kind of what eradicated kind of encompasses. And then negative, it's not present. There are two ways people can use negative. It's not there and it never was there, or it's not there. That's all I know about it. We don't have, and then we've been in discussions about this concept of separating out those two definitions, but again, that's a very large conversation we have with people. And so right now, that's what negative encompasses. It encompasses just not found. Geographic location. So we have three options here: country, Canada and the US, state and or province. That also includes territories and things like that. So you can add multiple. So if I want to say Alberta and I want to say, let's look at Montana. So that way, if I want to see, these two locations that are very close to each other, I want to see if what's going on maybe along the border, things like that, I can see that. And then counties, these are again limited to the state selection as well as the data existing at this time within the parameters we've already started applying. And then finally, on the simple, again, we're still on the simple options pane. There's also project. So this returns records that are associated with the projects selected. So options are EDDMapS Alberta, EDDMapS app, EDDMapS Pro, and EDDMapS website. So those are the 4 ways data have come in. And at the bottom, you see this red button. If I click refresh, that returns it to the default parameter query. So that way, if you built this query and you're like, I just don't like how it's going, I kind of want to start from scratch, you can press the refresh button and it'll return it to the default query. If I go to advanced, I'm going to get some more options. That includes user group. So user group, we have a few partners that have this concept of user group. I think it's mainly Minnesota, but it looks like there might be a few other options. So we worked with Minnesota, and they wanted to kind of group their people together into kind of teams. And so that's where this concept came. Again, because it's under the advanced options, because there's a very limited number of people who would be interested in user group. There are 2 additional date options, so date entered and date updated. So if you're looking for records that were submitted for a very specific date range, or records where the record itself was edited, again, this is editing a record. This is not connected to the concept of revisit. So if a record was edited in some way, we have this parameter allowed for people to look at it and use it to search for data. So if you're like running a reporting campaign or something like that, you're looking for data within a specific date range, observation date, data entered, date updated, you can apply those. Another option that's on the advanced page is invasive species list. So you can look for some of the lists we have. I think there might be 1 or 2 lists I do need to add to this page. or to these options, but right now we've got a list of options from some of our partners that have asked for them to be added. With the list option, there's also the option of some of the, I think Utah maybe, they rank their list, so I can look for species that fit those specific ranks. Not every list has ranked their species on the list, but that is an option there. And then finally, there's also other geographic location. So if I want to look at, let's get rid of that parameter. And you see that checkbox went away when I got rid of that parameter. So if I want to look at in Florida, there we go. There are 107 records that were submitted in Florida in the last month that are reviewed and publicly available, of course. I can then look at, oh, it wants me to add a county first, of course. Let's do Miami-Dade County. So we're just looking at the 18 records that were submitted in the last month for Miami-Dade County that are positive and treated. Again, these are all the parameters that I've applied. I can see a summary right there. So I can look at these other geographic locations and see if I want to narrow this down to, let's say, the Everglades SISMA. Well, all of those 18 records are actually in the Everglades SISMA. If I wanted to say this one, 5 of them. So in the U.S. Congressional District for Florida 27th, there are 5 records that have been that are publicly available from the last month that are positive and treated. So again, that narrows it down quite a lot. Again, I've mentioned a couple times now, these are the query parameters, the results summary. So that tells you there are 9 locations. So location is a unique concept of the species at a location. There are 5 locations with exact coordinates, so that's why the 5 shows up there rather than like 9. It gives you an infested area information, so that's the records that have infested area. They've been summed up and it equates to 1. There are 9 new records at this time. So again, 4 of them don't have coordinates associated with them. And there are 9 records at that location. So there are no revisits that were submitted at this time is what this kind of amounts to. With this, if this is a query I want to save and rerun this all the time, you can save the query. So if I actually want to say, I want to know at all times what is going on, to clear, that's what I need there, clear. So if I want to know at all times how many records there are in this congressional district, right now I can't actually. I picked a big one. Saving a query is not available for queries with over 10,000 exact coordinates. So I will need to pare this down a little bit. So let's say I only care about insects. There we go. So let's say I'm an entomologist and I want to know what's going on in my congressional district at all times. I can save this query. I cannot save this query. So I'll make a note that we might need to look at what's going to be going on there. Let me see if I refresh this. Okay, I'll make a note of that. I've not seen that happen yet. To note that something is going on with the save query button because it was active earlier. See if I completely refresh it. Okay, so the save query now works. So something in that combination it didn't like. So what we've got programmers on right now who are going to be actually making a note of that. But when you elect to save the query, you assign it a name, you click submit, and it saves that query in under your My EDDMapS, and I'll show that to you in a second. The other options you have are on the right-hand side here. You can download this data as a CSV, which is a like an Excel file. You can download a KML, which all that will really show you is points on a map. If you don't have access or training in a ArcGIS or QGIS and you just want to look at points on a map, you can use the KML option. And then there's also the shapefile option, which is it will download a geo package, which is like a geo database. And you can open that in ArcGIS or QGIS to interact with that as a database. The other options, you can share this, you can screenshot the map, you can look at the map full screen. But these options right here, these green links, will allow you to actually download the data from this query. If I wanted to run this query again, I would go to my edit. Oh, and I want to, sorry, the walkthrough, everything I'm talking about, we've got this walkthrough right here in the top. So you can click this, it'll open up a PDF that explains all the fields and how everything works. So that's right here on this page in case you forget what certain parameters mean. So if I go back to so if I go to my EDDMapS, you can see on the left here, there's my saved queries. So again, if I want to run a query every month, every 6 months, quarterly, whatever, if I need to do reports, I can click on my saved query and I can see these are the queries I've saved, and I can run them as I want to. So if I want to run Bugwood, Fullwood Park records, oh, it takes me to the old page. I should have, okay. So make a note of that. We need to make sure that these are directing to the correct page. But it will run the query again with the current information. So again, it tells you your query parameters, your result summary, and you can download the data again. The other thing you can do with these saved queries is you can, and the reason that it's limited to 10,000 points is to allow you to use this data set in EDDMapS Pro. So in EDDMapS Pro, that's our app for people who want to go into the field, maybe have no cell service and want to look at existing data, maybe revisit existing populations. In a lot of cases, it's part of this person's job to manage, treat, monitor land areas for invasive species. So this is one of the features of EDDMapS Pro, is to be able to download existing data and interact with it in EDDMapS Pro. So when you, so previously you could download a whole county at a time and do a lot of in-app filtering on that. And that was the way it kind of existed previously. We did add the concept of these custom data sets so that if you only care about a certain species in a county and so forth, you are able to download just that smaller data set instead of a data set for a whole county. And then again, you can interact with that data in EDDMapS Pro. And so, yeah, so Joe added a link to the EDDMapS Pro app, so you can go and, if you want to, navigate to it and download it. So going back to the first question we had about format of spreadsheets to upload absence data, if we go to the training page, and at the bottom of it's the tools page. The tools in the training pages used to be the same thing. So we can bulk data resources for uploading data to EDDMapS. There's the procedure and the data template for uploading data, and this data template's in an Excel format. When downloading queries, I noticed that the county isn't being listed when the data set is sent. Are you talking about there is a field missing in the download? And if so, are you talking about CSV or shapefile, or just trying to get a little bit more information so we can look at what might be going on there? So if you can provide that additional information, we can look into it. It's not intentional that would be missing. Let me just go ahead and answer that part of it. It's not intentional that's being not included if it isn't being included. Does anybody else have any additional questions? I tried to be pretty thorough in going through this because we have gotten some emails about the new advanced query tool. So I wanted to kind of be pretty thorough there. Oh, it's in the email, the county was listed. And it's also missing from the KML and shapefiles. So we'll look into that. So that's two completely different things. If it's missing from the email as well as from the shapefile. So I'll have our programmers look into that to see what might be going on there. So any other questions? And it can be about the advanced query tool, or it can be about any other things relating to EDDMapS.
I think one of the favorite things I've gotten to play around with, what I was really excited as we were building out the advanced query tool, was that you aren't getting to that point. You're like, well, I hope this data comes back. I hope there's records that satisfy this query.
Mm.
I've always hated when I put in a bunch of query results, get back nothing. It's like, well, all right, let me just keep doing trial and error until I get data back. So we've had a lot of fun building that up and making that work well.
So we have the question about searching for the EDDMapS ID. So you can type in EDDMapS ID. That's what this object ID is, and I can have them replace object ID with record ID or something similar. So you can search for a specific record ID. It doesn't allow, I don't think, more than one. I think it allows you to search for one record ID. I don't think it allows to search for multiples. But right now, we don't have a specific way to search for several record IDs if you're wanting to download, say, 10 specific records. But that's something that we can look into as an option. That would definitely be an advanced option. I haven't had someone ask for searching for multiple individual record IDs. So any other questions? So like I said, this advanced query tool, if we open that, it kind of walks you through what the different options are, and this shows you you know, which options are under the advanced compared to the ones that are just part of the simple query tool. And it also walks through what happens when you are looking at the results page. So you can save query, you can see the map that of the records with shapes associated with them, the download options, and it walks you through what the results summary means. So you can look at that and use this to help you refine your filter. No, this is being recorded, so it will be available if you go to the training page. This will go away. It will sort of move down into the past office hours videos, and you'll be able to view the video, I think within a day or two, if you want to review something or if you want to share it with someone else.
And we're always available for questions. If something comes up, you know how to find us. You've got our email addresses, plenty of ways to contact us online. We're always happy to walk through some things. Sometimes it does get into some very specific use cases folks have or some issue they're seeing. Other times, general questions. We're also happy if there's a topic that you're like, I've always wondered where the species profiles come from and how do I organize those because I need more outreach materials. Sure, we can talk about other topics. Send those along. We'll set up an office hours and walk through that. There's a lot of pieces in what we do. And so it's hard for us sometimes to know what our audience hasn't quite gotten into nearly as much as we've spent time doing it. So.
And the next month's office hours are on reviewing records. So we have had some changes in the last year or so to the, minor changes for how the review records process works. So if you are a verifier, you may want to just hop on for a refresher course, and also just to maybe see some things that you didn't know were options previously. So that will be going out, in a couple of weeks, the announcement for that office hours. But you can right now, again, on the training page, click on this and it'll take you to sign up for November's office hours. So that way you can go ahead and get that out of the way. And like I said, we'll be going over the reviewing process for that. And then we didn't last year, and we just started doing this last year. We didn't last year do a December office hours because December is kind of a busy month for a lot of people. Sometimes people use up all their available hours, vacation hours in December to take a long trip. So we haven't typically done a December office hours. But if you have any ideas of things you'd like to see for January or just a future office hours, you can let us know in the chat page or chat pane, or you can email us or, let us know in some other way, something you'd like to see in an office hours.
I think we've satisfied everyone's curiosity there, or they're preparing for the Halloween sugar coma, which will come up pretty soon.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you at future office hours.